Hello and welcome to Console Shock Retro and Modern Gaming Chat with me, Trev, and as always, Stu. How's it going, Stu?
Yeah, it's going really good, Trev. Going really good, really good.
Good. We've got a bit of a Sega theme that we're going to be doing today, but before we actually get into the main sort of thrust of what we're going to be talking about, you actually wanted to talk about quite an interesting little game that you've been playing. Especially for people like Sega fans like we are, especially like the sort of late 90s Sega stuff, really, you know, those incredible arcade machines they had, Sega Model 2, Sega Model 3, Sega Rally 2, in fact. So what have you been doing with Sega Rally 2, Stu?
Well, I the Sega guys did a really good video about Sega Rally 2, this PC version, but the 25th anniversary edition.
I just want to stop you, though. The Sega guys, so who do they cover normally?
I think it's mainly Nintendo stuff.
That's what I thought. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Go.
Anyway, as I was rudely interrupted, so they did this really good video about Sega Rally 2, the PC version, and it had all been sort of fully modified, updated, and it's called like the 25th anniversary edition. So lots of sort of coders, and forgive me, I don't know actually who did it, but they did a really good job of sort of updating it so it runs on sort of modern hardware. So you can download it all free. So if you've got a PC, I can't imagine it's got a huge sort of requirements, as in you know, up-to-date processors and graphics cards.
As far as I know, I think there was. This is before the Dreamcast came out. I think around 98, early 99. The PC got a version of Sega Rally 2, port of the arcade machine, which I think came out in 98. I think. So obviously, you know, they couldn't bring it to the Saturn. Well, the Saturn was pretty much dead, and the Dreamcast was coming out. So they did eventually. We obviously got Sega Rally 2 as a launch game, and it was in the UK. I think probably in the US as well. But I think it was a port of the PC version.
Oh, was it really? Yeah.
I think it was, yeah, which explains why it's a little bit on the janky side. You know, it's not as good as you could have gotten on the Dreamcast.
No.
So this is basically, they took that PC, those files, and they've used that as the basis for this then, I think, isn't it?
Exactly. They've updated it, put lots of new sort of graphics features in there and so on. And to be honest, it's all sort of free of charge, and you can actually get the game, the normal Sega Rally 2, on an abandonware website. So it's
the
all
ISO, the copy of the disc,
exactly, for the PC, and install it. So it's all sort of, you know, out of copyright or whatever. So you're not breaking any rules, I don't think. Though people may disagree with me on that. And it's a really good sort of experience. And I did a stream on the Console Shock channel, so people want to go and watch that on our YouTube channel. Yeah, you're more than sort of welcome to, and you know, get my actual opinion while I was playing it. And it's really good. And I thought there might be a little bit more to it, because the sort of Sega Rally 1 was just, you know, you start, you do one race,
there's not much to it. Yeah,
there's not much to it.
15 minutes and you've done the whole game pretty much.
Well, if you're pretty good at it. But yeah, with
there isn't
Sega
a career
Rally
mode or anything. Basically, it wasn't like there's not 8-hour long career mode. It was before that time, really, wasn't it? Gran Turismo. Well, there was Amiga racing games where you had like F1 season you'd be able to go through, but these Sega arcade ports, you're still pretty limited as to the 3 tracks or whatever. Yeah,
I think there was sort of 4 or 5 tracks on there, and I do think there'll be a little bit more. But there was some sort of career mode where it was basically the arcade mode just piled onto each other, if that sort of makes sense. So I'd recommend anyone going out there downloading it and you know giving it a go. And I did have to have a little bit of problems trying to get it installed, but on the archive.org page where it's all hosted, you can just download the exe file on there, and it's all, there's sort of instructions on if you get any sort of problems on how to install it. But I'd highly recommend it.
Yeah, I mean, probably until this new release, I guess, you would probably say the best way to play it would be just Sega Rally 2 on the Dreamcast, which isn't the best port, but it's pretty good. It's certainly playable, obviously 30 frames a second is a bit disappointing, and there's a lot of pop-in and things like that. But it's perfectly playable, and it runs decently. And then there was the PC version.
Mine was saying 60 on because I always have the little counter in the corner.
Yeah, I think the PC version was had an unlocked frame rate, I think. The Saturn version, they restricted it to 30, I think. But I think you could unlock a 60 frames a second mode that was like a weird hidden cheat, but it sort of reduced the graphical quality to do it. Trouble is, it was a very early Dreamcast game, so I think if they made it a couple of years later or just a year later, they would have had better tools and development of capabilities, and we would have got something a lot stronger, at least on the level of there was Daytona USA 2001, wasn't there, a couple of years later, something that was at least as good as that. So but that's really cool. I mean, there's been a few of these. I think you mentioned it to me a few days ago about this, and I think at the time I said I've been playing Wipeout Phantom Edition.
Yes, I want to get that as well. Well, you've got to send me the link.
Yeah, same kind of deal. Was what you've got with the Sega Rally 2 Championship Edition there, or Anniversary Edition. It's just the original PC version. That I think it's the PC version is the basis that came out in '97, I think, after the PS1. And they've just enhanced it. They've just modified the files. You just drop some files into the same folder. It runs an exe that kind of mods some files. You can put in the original PS1 music if you have the PS1 ISO. Or the PS1 disc. You can take those audio files, and so you've got the soundtrack. And it runs in 4K in 60 frames a second plus. I have it running on the Steam Deck, and it runs beautifully on the Steam Deck. And I suspect this Sega Rally 2 probably would run pretty well on that as well if you got it all set up.
I think so. Yeah.
And I have a similar thing actually that I do. Another thing that I play a lot as well, though it's not a mod or an anniversary that came out, but there was a version of Outrun 2006, which is basically just a sort of Outrun 2 Championship Edition almost. Outrun 2 was an amazing, maybe the best Sega arcade racer that ever came out, I think. Sega Rally's pretty close to it, but I'd probably just put Outrun 2 and 2006 slightly above it. Probably one of the best arcade races of them all. That's not even just Sega. But yeah, they released a PC version. There was an Xbox, PS2, and a PC version, and PSP, actually, funnily enough. But what you could do, the that PC version, 2006, that came out, obviously. I think that would have been very late XP kind of Windows Vista era, just before Windows 7. So a little bit clunky to get running, but there are mods that will get it working. Although I actually think I just ripped the files from the DVD of the PC version, put them in a folder, put that on my Steam Deck's internal storage, and just used Proton to run the exe file. I think it just worked straight away. And because it's kind of it didn't need any real tweaking, and because it's kind of a semi-modern PC game. It already was able to go up to HD resolutions, a 60 frames a second. I think it's locked to 60. I don't think you can go any higher than that. But also, it's an old PC game from 20 years ago now, nearly 20 years ago. Steam Deck, it runs perfectly. So yeah, that's another thing I'd recommend, especially if you do have those. They're great games for those kind of PC handhelds because they're kind of perfect for them. They're very low requirements, run perfectly. The kind of arcade experience that goes really well on those handhelds. But you can grab. Quite hard to find a physical copy of it, but I'm pretty sure there's like you say, archive.org has a lot of this stuff. I'm sure someone's got the copy of the PC ISO somewhere that you can play. But no, that sounds really cool. Like I said, I'll probably try and get Sega Rally 2 running on the Steam Deck. I've got a Dreamcast emulator that I play on the Steam Deck that runs pretty well. And I've got a Sega Model 3 emulator called Super Model, and that runs pretty well. Yeah, and it
So
runs.
Trev, you got a supermodel.
Yeah, it lives in my Steam Deck. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good emulator, actually. It runs all those Model 3 games like Virtua Fighter 3 and like Daytona USA 2, a lot of which never came out on a console. Virtua Striker 2, there's about 4 different versions of that. So you could run Sega Rally 2, the original arcade version, on there, but I'd probably say this PC version might be a better way of playing it.
Actually, playing the arcade, it'll be set on hard. So at least
exactly.
If you got the PC version, you put it down to easy or normal or medium, whatever your level is, and obviously you can sort of play around the settings a little bit more than what you can on an arcade game. And an arcade game is designed to sort of take your money rather than give you sort of an enjoyable long experience, really. So I think the sort of the PC version will be better. But each to their own. And if you want to play the original hardware, and then because sometimes I downloaded a little while ago. I remember I used to play Turok 2 on the NES and on NES N64.
Yeah,
and that was
great
on the Xbox Series X in the game store there. So I had a little bit, and I think it's only on sale for like.
Oh, is that the remake that came out? Yeah, because I've got the first Turok.
It's not a remake. It's you sort of play it, and it takes away the cloudiness, and everything is sort of it's all got its sharp edges, and because you're running at 4K, it looks such a weird environment. You're walking around. There's no sort of atmosphere that playing it on a 14-inch CRT. With all the what's it called?
Fog,
the fog,
massive amounts of Vaseline splashed across the textures.
Exactly, and obviously it looks better now, but it doesn't look right. That's the way. So this actually Sega Rally 2 had a little bit of that, where you can sort of see the edges of everything. Everything's a clear. Straight line and stuff like that, and that's it is a little bit sort of jarring. And again, we talked about it offline, but I went and got Tomb Raider was on 1, 2, and 3 was on Prime Gaming or something.
Yeah. You told me, and I grabbed it as well, and I got it running on my Steam Deck. Yeah.
And playing that is honestly, it was. I didn't like it. I really didn't like it.
Yeah, I wasn't really a fan of the back in the day. I don't think I owned the games, but when I was a kid, or teenager, really, we were talking about the PS1 era. I remember playing a demo of Tomb Raider, the original, and I thought it was okay. It was that first sort of cavern stage, but I never got. I mean, I've talked about this loads, like games where you have puzzles that aren't super obvious. My brain isn't wired for any of this stuff. I just get confused and bored, and I give up. And that was kind of that's probably more so when I was a kid. Although I probably persevered in those days because that was the only that was probably the game that had to last me till my birthday, or something. But I did mess around a little bit with the original Tomb Raider. I might play it a bit more from that remaster because it's a bit easier to you turn off the tank controls and you can give us slightly more smoother control. Still not perfect, but better than it was. Anywhere to be able to crouch to pick up things. It gives you a little visual indicator to sort of move around something to try and get to the point where you pick it up.
I found the controls very. You have to do everything, inch perfect or millimeter perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it wasn't, and I was on like a third level and I was just like, hold on, the floor's moving away. It was just like, I had enough of this. This is tedious rather than enjoyable. And what do people say where they go, well, it's your fault when you die, or it's the game's fault. This was the game's fault. I was dying. It wasn't me.
I mean, they could have gone a bit further with some of the quality of life improvements. Like I really like having a quest marker or a map or something like you have in the best sort of wayfinder thing in any game is Dead Space, where you literally your character like zaps a little beam that goes along the floor, and it literally it literally tells you exactly where.
Do you know what?
You never really get lost.
That is something nice to have. You got press R1 or something, and then it brings up an arrow and it tells you which way to go, and that is useful. But I can understand why people sort of don't like it. And
you can just choose to not use it. I mean, it's not harming you if you're not really bothering with it. If you want to give yourself a hardcore experience,
I do use it. I do.
Oh, hell yeah! Nothing to be ashamed of. Nothing to be ashamed of. But and there's other games that are good at that. But Tomb Raider, it doesn't really help you in any way. So that can get a bit frustrating. So if they, I mean, Quake 2, the remaster of that came out like a year or a couple of years ago. That was from that, the era of FPSs where it was basically like walking around a maze, and it could be very frustrating when you're not really sort of hitting the next section that you're supposed to get to because it's just not clear. But now you can, in that remaster, you can literally, drop some directions that will tell you, which is really helpful.
First-person games. Like all the Doom, the Hexen, the Quake 1, Quake 2, you'll do something and you hear a door open on the other side of the map. And that's what they're all about. And you have to try and find out where that door was.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Or they're all about, red, yellow, and blue keys.
Yeah, Doom
find that and then go back and find and it was just... And that seemed to be
had like a decent map, weirdly enough, for an early FPS game. That actually had a pretty decent map.
Yeah, I don't think I ever used the map on those. I know what you mean. It was like a wireframe, wasn't it? Something
it was.
That.
And you could see your little guy, and then obviously you could just go to the areas that aren't currently. It wouldn't like just give you the whole area, straight away. It would start drawing out as you pass through areas. So you would just walk to the bit that hasn't appeared for you, and then you'd know, there must be the next place I need to go to. But they kind of dropped that with, I don't think there was a map in Quake 2 didn't have them. So they kind of made a step back in that sense. But
they just kept with this silly premise of you had to get keys to get through, and then all the other games copied it. All this, things like looking at Dark Forces, all the Doom clones. That's what people love to do. Colourful keys. That's what you want. Keys.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
games were mostly about finding stuff, it seemed, in those days.
God.
Whether it's Superman, Mario 64, whether it's Doom, whether it's Tomb Raider, you were just walking around finding stuff. That was basically... The only other thing you did in the game was race somewhere or put something in a goal if it was a sports game.
Yeah. But imagine like Call of Duty now... And it was just like, you got to go.
Can't kill the Nazis. We've got to get a blue key first.
Well, you got to get the blue key before you can get in there and save the terrorists from Lebanon or something.
Yeah,
you got to get the yellow key.
Well, that's happens in real life,
you can proceed.
That's what soldiers do in real life, isn't it? They've got to find the yellow key, open the yellow door. The terrorists sort of, the terrorists live inside a building that's got a big yellow door. So you got to get the yellow key. Go and open it.
Oh, there's got to be terrorists behind that yellow door.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've got the yellow key, so that's got to be it.
And all the Nazis are behind the picture of Hitler in Wolfenstein or something.
Exactly. Not if it's the Super Nintendo version, but
every
other version.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Well, we can keep on the subject of old school Sega. We actually are going to talk about the Mega Drive.
Yes,
and we have covered it before. We did do a dedicated episode of a long time ago, I think, literally years ago now. You'll be able to find it in our archives, and that was just a general overview of the history of it and the best games, and just giving a very general episode of the impact the Mega Drive had. We thought it'd be a good idea to get a bit more specific as to what it's like in the modern day to actually, to own an original Mega Drive console and to basically collect for it. It's something that I have a lot of experience with. It's probably the console that I've collected the most for out of all of them, in terms of the sort of 16-bit, 8 and 16-bit era, I would say specifically. I think the console I've got the most games for is probably the PS1, but the Mega Drive isn't that far behind. And yeah, we're going to look at the best things, what you should buy, what you shouldn't buy, what sort of money you're going to be looking to spend, what accessories are the best accessories, what sort of games should you be looking for, where to get them, how to get them. So also, my experiences, I've been doing it focusing on the Mega Drive on and off for quite a few years now, probably a good 10 years that I've been like, right, I'm going to try and get a bunch of Mega Drive stuff, and I've built up a decent collection since then. I had bits and bobs as well, going back to my childhood when I had a Mega Drive originally. What's your experience of it, Stu? Have you collected for it? Do you collect for it?
I'll be honest with you. I sort of pulled a face when you said, "Oh, we'll give you an idea of pricing," and I've got no clue anymore about sort of pricing of Mega Drive games and Mega Drive accessories. I'm certainly giving some guidance on sort of good games of what to get. But I think I remember about 2 or 3 years ago, I bought the EverDrive from yourself, Trev. So I've got all the games I could possibly want on there. Yeah. And I've got one Multi-Mega as well. I think I bought that for you as well, Trev. And that's a really nice little setup.
Wait a minute, Stu. You're the one that owned a shop. Yeah, you're the one buying stuff off me, it seemed.
Yes. I think I bought these potentially after. Well, I certainly bought the EverDrive after I had the shop.
That's actually a good point. Obviously, you worked in that shop for a long, long time. Where did the Mega Drive sort of rank in popularity? Was it always a daily thing? People would buy stuff? Was the Super Nintendo more popular? Was it Mega Drive better than that?
Well, I always felt like the Mega Drive, the Super Nintendo collectors were a bit like, the box has got to be perfect. Has it got the cardboard inlay? Has it got this? Has it got that? Let me check the corners of the box. Well, Mega Drive fans or collectors they were a little bit more. I don't mind if I just get the cart, or if it's got the box, brilliant. Yeah, and they were a little bit more like, actually they just wanted to go home and play. Streets of Rage 2 or, Sonic the Hedgehog or, any games like that. And it was more about that rather than, hold on, what's let me check the case. And obviously there were people like that were, very concerned about they were making a collection. They want everything to be sort of, top. But I think we probably sold more Mega Drive games than we did Super Nintendo. But Super Nintendo fans were, if you had a tatty box, you might as well not have the box. I think some of them thought that.
Yeah, obviously it helps that the Mega Drive had much better boxes. Mega Drive with those clamshell sort of VHS box style cases. So you'd be very rare that you'd get an absolutely battered looking game. The only thing you really need to worry about is if the instructions are there, because obviously they can always go missing. But we'll start off with the actual hardware. So also the first thing, if you look at start an original Mega Drive collection, you're probably going to want to pick up a console first of all. But what would you pick up? What's the best thing to pick up?
I think I would recommend a Mega Drive 2. Oh yeah, I'd get a Mega Drive 2, hold on, I'd get a Mega Drive 2 or a PAL Hong Kong Mega Drive 1.
Right,
just to confuse matters there, because the Mega Drive 2, hopefully it's still pretty cheap as chips. You can get a hold of it, but with the PAL Hong Kong Mega Drive 1, you can play games from all different regions. You don't have to sort of cut the carts or anything like that. It's a little bit more sort of region free. And so from that point of view, you can get Japanese games, American games, and so on. So that there'll be my good intro into the sort of the Mega Drive world. But if money's no object, I'd say try and get the Multi-Mega or the CDX, as it was called in America and Japan.
we probably need to clarify a few things there. There obviously wasn't just the sort of a Mega Drive base unit and that was it. There was the original Mega Drive 1 console. Then it had an updated, slimmer version, which came out a few years later, called the Mega Drive 2. They're mostly the same, really. I mean, I think most people tend to prefer the Mega Drive 1 in terms of the looks. I actually do really like the Mega Drive 2. One advantage it has is it's in stereo out of the audio, the video port out the back. So when you connect it to your TV, that's a can of worms as well that we might not have time to go into, but let's assume that you're able to do that. You'll be able to get stereo sound out of a Mega Drive 2 without any messing around, whereas a Mega Drive 1, the Mega Drive 1 has got a headphone jack on the unit, so you can have a SCART cable that can break out to that headphone jack and pull the stereo audio from that headphone jack. But by default, with a plain SCART cable, or even some of these, HDMI cables that go just straight into the Mega Drive. If it's a Mega Drive 1, you're going to be getting mono audio. But some people say the audio is slightly better in a Mega Drive 1 and a Mega Drive 2. The video quality is sometimes going to be better as well. It's a very marginal things, though. I mean, if you're retro Bob from Retro RGB, you probably will go nuts, with the differences. But I think your average person probably wouldn't care too much. They're the two base units, and one of those two, I think you can really go wrong. The only thing you need to worry about with these, if you buy them in the UK, they're also going to be PAL. I mean, Stu, you touched upon it already. There's different regions. We obviously were in the PAL region. That basically meant all of our games ran at 50 hertz, which meant they were 17% slower. We didn't know any better when we were kids, but that's how it was. It wasn't until we would really have started playing emulators for these things, in our teens and early adulthood, that all these games suddenly ran a bit faster and the music played faster. But most of the games for the Mega Drive, and certainly the better games, anything developed in America and Japan would have ran, a particular speed, and then when we got it over here, it would have been slowed down. So you don't want to play those PAL versions of the games, really. You want to play the 60 hertz versions, which we be playing at the normal.
I mean, a lot of the games were modified at the time to be played at the right speed. But yeah, you're absolutely right, and there's always these videos. I think it's sort of Sonic the Hedgehog 1, where people see Europeans playing it and they go, "Oh, the song's different," but it's just playing it. And I've got great memories of playing Sonic 1, and I can remember the music now, and really enjoying it. And but if I played the US version at 17% faster, and then I went back to playing the PAL version, I probably would have been sort of a little bit miffed, but I certainly enjoyed it. But I mean, when you sort of touched upon the slight graphics difference, or between the Mega Drive 1 and 2 and so on, it's like, I always want to say is, actually don't worry about that. Just as long as you get one of the machines and just because it will be basically you'll always get a good experience. I think a lot of people want to get a Mega Drive 1, get a Mega Drive 2, and play their memories. And I mean, you touched upon sort of the cables, and I think in 2025 as it is now, it's probably you could spend more on cables getting that machine running than you actually would on the console quite easily.
Yeah, the consoles themselves are pretty cheap. I think you need to pay more than 30 or 40, 50 quid max for just a Mega Drive 1 or 2. Ideally, get one that can play all that's been modified to output in either 50 or 60 hertz. I mean, you kind of do want to keep that 50 hertz for a few reasons we may go into later. There were European games that were developed in Europe that are designed to run at 50 hertz. So if you try and run them at the American or Japanese 60 hertz speed, they'll run too quick. So it's good to keep the option to flip back to the PAL speed as well. But in terms of other bits of hardware, there was those two main units, and that's probably the only ones that you're really going to need to bother with. You did have things like you mentioned the Multi-Mega / CDX, which is a really, really cool unit, which is basically a Mega CD and a Mega Drive combined into a unit that's not really only a slightly bigger, sort of thicker, really, than a portable CD player that you would have had in the late 90s. So very, very cool. If you want like a Mega Drive and a Mega CD, usually it's quite a bulky, chunky device when they're combined together. We'll talk about the Mega CD separately a little bit later in terms of grabbing one of them. But the Multi-Mega, I wouldn't really recommend it, certainly if you're starting out, because it's very, very expensive. They're fairly rare, or they do pop up fairly often on eBay, but you'll be looking at hundreds of pounds to pick one of those up. I mean, CEX are selling them for over £500 loose. I got mine when they were a lot cheaper than that, and they were expensive then, but they've gone through the roof. And
another good thing to chat about is the Master System adapter. That all you do is basically the Mega Drive.
There, Stu. We'll get
there, Vi.
We're going to get to the accessories in a little bit. But yeah, there is a thing called a Master System adapter that we're going to look at. But in terms of the original hardware, so yeah, obviously Multi-Mega, I mean, Stu, you've got one. I mean, if you've got one, it might be the default thing you play with. If you play a lot of Mega CD, because it's such an easy unit just to have out next to a TV. It doesn't take up any space at all. But yeah, wouldn't really recommend it. Very expensive. Then you've got like the Sega Nomad, which is a really, really cool variant of the Mega Drive. Again, I'm kind of fortunate enough to have one of these as well. It's basically a handheld Mega Drive. So obviously most people would know the Game Gear, which was the Sega's kind of flagship handheld. A lot of people wouldn't realise or even be aware that Sega made a handheld Mega Drive in 1995, kind of right during the sort of the twilight years or months of the Mega Drive itself. And it basically plays all the Mega Drive games. It is American. It never came out in Europe or Japan, so there is some regional
don't hold
lockout.
that against it, though.
Don't hold that against it.
Don't hold it against it, just because it's American.
You might be a bit restricted if you've got some PAL games. Mega Drive region lockout is a bit of a weird thing. Most games don't have it. Some do. It's a bit inconsistent. But the Nomad would be restricted to those games that are.
Trev, I think, talking about a buyer's guide, I wouldn't recommend someone buy a Nomad. Hell
no.
I think the screen would look absolutely awful.
Not without some serious mods, which defeats the point, doesn't it, really?
Exactly. So what Trev's talking about is that you need to at least replace the caps and so the capacitors in there, potentially get a new LCD screen. So once you've spent a lot of money on the machine, then you probably got to spend a lot of money upgrading it again to actually make it. Because I think back in the day, the screens didn't look great, and then over time they certainly don't look great. And
that's right. I mean, it is someone that owns one and has a Game Gear as well. It is a little bit of an upgrade over a Game Gear screen, but it's still poor. If you're used to playing Steam Decks and Switches, night and day, nowhere near.
But have you done any mods to yours?
No, mine is just a completely vanilla Sega Nomad, but I don't use it as a Mega Drive. These days I'm playing a Mega Drive, it'll probably be in an emulator, or I use my personal one that I use most. It is a Japanese Mega Drive 1. That's what I use as my Mega Drive connected to my TV. But yeah, Nomad, very cool. I mean, in 1995, it would have been amazing to have one, because having a before the PlayStation came out, the Mega Drive was still the current generation. To have a handheld version of that was amazing. It would have been the most powerful handheld at that time, more so than the PC Engine GT or the Turbo Express, as it's called in America.
But I believe can't you plug it into the TV as well?
You can, It's got a second controller port. So you can plug another controller in to have a player 2 play a game with you, although you've got to hold the actual Nomad to be player 1 with the TV cable coming out the top. But yeah, it just takes the Mega Drive cartridges. It can run off batteries. There's a big chunk of a battery pack you plug into the back of it. It takes 6 AA's. They don't actually sort of slide into the unit like every other handheld. It's like a separate dongle. You've got to jack onto the back of it for the batteries, and they last about 5 or 6 hours. Again, there's mods. People have modded like USB powered packs and stuff. But yeah, kind of a cool novelty device, and yeah, you could play Mega Drive games on it. I mean, it's got a built-in 6-button pad, so you've got your Street Fighters and your 6-button games. They obviously work perfectly. You haven't got to mod it anymore for that. I mean, it came out in '95 when the 6-button pad was pretty much the standard on the Mega Drive, so you can see why they did that. But yeah, really, really cool device, but not really the one you would go for. Again, very expensive to find one as well. Because again, they're not common, and they only came out in America. There are some other kind of oddball Mega Drives as well. Like Japan got a whole bunch of them, like the Wonder Mega, which is a combined Mega Drive and Mega CD. There was the Mega Jet, which was basically, we just talked about the Sega Nomad. It's a Sega Nomad, but without the screen.
What's the point of that?
It was mainly used on airplanes. So you'd have people that would be in the executive area of an airplane with a little TV screen. They'd have these plugged in so they could play Mega Drive games.
Right.
But yeah, they actually Sega released them so you could buy them as well. But yeah, kind of again, really, really kind of. I'd say a Nomad is more useful than a Mega Jet. It's just a giant controller, really, that you put the cartridge in and plug into the TV. But yeah, there's a few others that I'm probably forgetting, but to be honest, I think the conclusion, I think we both agree on this. £50 will get you like a Mega Drive 1 or 2 off eBay. They're pretty common to find them modded as well. You can mod a Mega Drive 1 for 60 hertz by cutting a trace on the motherboard, and that'll make it 60 hertz. I mean, it'll stop it from being 50 hertz permanently. If you don't care about that, though, you can just take off the top of the casing, zip through that trace. There's guides on how to do this, but it's very simple, and you've got yourself a 60 hertz Mega Drive. Again, I'd probably recommend getting one that can switch, though, because there are good reasons to keep it at 50 hertz. But yeah, that's kind of the main console. I mean, accessories we're going to get into now. Obviously, you touched upon one already, but we're just going to, before we get to that, I think controllers would be a good thing to talk about. To be honest, there's not too much to say about controllers. I mean, have you got any thoughts on the Mega Drive controllers and what you should use?
Well, I mean, I always liked the 6-button one is the one to get because it was slightly smaller. I never actually liked the original sort of kidney-shaped Mega Drive 1 controller, though. I never had bad memories of it. It just
I forgot how big that was. So I
dug out exactly.
My button, and I was like, "Wow, this is chunky."
It always felt a little bit too big, and so I remember I'd go to my friend's house, and I would always use that, and then he had a great big. One of those arcade sticks, a 3-button arcade stick.
Oh, cool! Yeah.
And I remember thinking, "Oh, that's really cool. That is." But I never liked using that either.
Yeah, you know what?
It was cool.
I never knew anybody that did. I had plenty of mates that had consoles, not just Mega Drive, but anything. The only time I used joysticks extensively was on my Amiga. And I like using a joystick on the Amiga, and it was the main thing that I used. Although weirdly nowadays, when I'm playing an Amiga, I'll just use a Mega Drive controller because I find the muscle memory of using a joypad or a controller has completely killed. Using a joystick, because obviously consoles after that, the PlayStation, Saturn, Xbox, PS2, 3, 4, 5, everything is basically a control pad now and has been for a long time. But yeah, they're cool. The big chunky joysticks. Sega made some pretty good ones. I'd recommend those people.
They did a
love
3-button one, and then they did a 6-button one. A few years later. So I think if you're an arcade player, you grew up playing in the arcade, and you're big into Street Fighter, and things like that. It would have been, a good purchase. But
I kind of think that like the arcade thing is a bit overstated. I know plenty of people. I mean, I grew up in a seaside town, So I had access to an arcade because it was just down the road from me. But most people in the UK, apart from when they went on holiday, they probably wouldn't be going to the arcade. It's not like these stories that Sega Lord X and people like that are like, I went down to the arcade every day after school and played Street Fighter 2 for 6 hours. We didn't really have that sort of culture here. Or certainly not where I grew up. People will correct me in the comments. But I don't think a lot of people were playing, on a super regular basis, Street Fighter 2 arcade, unless they're a professional, arcade player or something, or lived next to an arcade. And I didn't go down very often. Didn't have the money to do it. So the arcade sticks probably aren't as essential as some people might make out. The Mega Drive has a lot of shmups, and arcade sticks are good for that. And obviously Street Fighter.
That's true, actually. Yeah.
So you'd probably be. They don't think they're too expensive as well.
I think with the Mega Drive, you had games where it's like things like Populous or Premier Manager or lots of games.
Oh, they're great with an arcade stick.
They would have been awful with an arcade stick. So, from my point of view,
you're not playing Premier Manager with the Turbo Fire on. It's amazing.
I bought the same player 12 times. No. What was the other accessories? There was the Menacer, the gun.
Yeah, there was the light gun. I mean, they're kind of useless now, I guess, because unless you've got a CRT. I don't think it was a great gun either, really, was it?
No.
The Lethal Enforcers gun, the blue kind of revolver gun that Konami made for Lethal Enforcers, is that compatible with the other light gun games like Terminator 2? And I don't think it is. I think so that's kind of annoying. You might have to have a Menacer for one bunch of games, and the Justifier, wasn't it? The Konami one was called the blue revolver.
That's right. Yeah.
You'll need that for Lethal Enforcers and I think a handful of other games. But yeah, they won't work anyway unless you have a CRT. Which again, if you listen to some of the retro gamers, everyone absolutely has to have a CRT, and everybody does. They don't. I don't anymore. But there are some good. I know, right? There are some good light gun games. Probably Terminator 2, the arcade game, is I think is my personal favourite. I don't know if it's the best one. Lethal Enforcers probably it might be. You can kind of take or leave a light gun. It really depends on if you've got the means to be able to use it, I would say. In terms of controllers, and I think we could sort of move on from controllers after, just giving my thoughts on it now. I think any of the Sega-produced controllers are great. My personal preference is the very final iteration of the 6-button pad. It's actually called the 6-button arcade pad. It's a bit difficult to sort of distinguish it from the other 6-button pad because it has the same model number, but it did come as standard in the US with the Mega Drive, or the Genesis, as it's called in America, the Genesis 3. If people haven't heard of the Genesis 3, they're like, what the hell? It's basically another Mega Drive, an even smaller one, but it's a bit crippled and a bit crap. But the controller that came with it is a 6-button pad, but it has a turbo switch on it, and it's a little bit smaller. Nice. Yeah, it's called the 6-button arcade pad, and look for one. It's basically got a turbo switch. And turbo switches, actually, me and Stu are in our 40s. We've got arthritis. We need to use these. We need to have these games that where you don't. Streets of Rage, scrolling beat 'em up shmups. You got to hammer a particular button over and over again. A turbo switch is a godsend. The one that's slightly easier to find is the Sega Mega Fire. It's basically the kidney bean shaped original 3-button pad, but with turbo switches for each button. So if you like that, original 3-button pad, probably just get that Mega Fire pad because you've got all the best stuff. The reason to have the original 3-button pad because it's a good pad. Not me and Stu's personal favourite, but it has turbo switches and it was made by Sega. Again, turbo switch is really useful for Mega Drive games because there's so many games that require hammering of a button, shmups and scrolling beat 'em ups. So that's what I'd recommend in terms of controllers. Get a Mega Fire if you like, and also the whole 6-button versus 3-button thing. To be honest, if you have a 3-button, you're probably going to be okay for 90% of games. I think the only games that you might struggle with is basically Street Fighter 2. There were some other games that like mainly beat 'em ups. Pretty much is the only place you're going to have issues. Mortal Kombat, I think, uses 4 buttons on the Mega Drive. And I think the only other game is that you'll struggle with a little bit is International Superstar Soccer Deluxe. There's no 3-button mode in that game. You lose the sprint button. It doesn't try and reallocate it to another button. You just won't have a sprint button. So it's a funny little quirk. If you like football games, that's probably the best one on the Mega Drive. You need a 6-button pad for that to have all the controls. But yeah, anything made by Sega, ideally that 6-button arcade pad or the 3-button Mega Fire pad because it's got the turbo switches.
I'm just looking on sort of Google Images and Mega Drive accessories, and there was an official wireless Sega Mega Drive controller set.
Yeah, I used to have it, yeah. Wireless arcade system, it was called. It's crap. It's crap.
Was it as awful as I thought? Yeah. You answered my question before I asked it.
Yeah, it's obviously line of sight based. So if you move your controller away from the infrared box that receives the signal, you won't be able to play your game. I mean, you've got modern controllers. We didn't really touch upon that. We were sort of talking about the originals, but there are modern controllers that do a much better job of a wireless, connection. There are official Sega licensed. Retrobit made a whole bunch of official Mega Drive controllers. Some are wired, some are wireless. I've got a bunch of them. They're pretty good. They connect to the original Mega Drive. They're not just for PCs or modern consoles. They do make them for the original console, and they're pretty great. I normally have the console quite close to me with a giant cable all the way over to the telly, so I just use the wired controllers. But yeah, the modern ones are pretty good and better than any of the original infrared sort of crap that came out during the Mega Drive's heyday. But yeah, a good point. There was wireless controllers back in the day. It wasn't the sort of thing that happened with the Wavebird and the GameCube. So yeah, the only other accessory that we need to talk about. There's the 32X and the Mega CD, but I don't consider them to be basic accessories. No. We'll touch upon them. But yeah, you mentioned it already. It was the Master System converter. So what is that, Stu?
Well, basically, it just goes in the top and just converts the pins, so you can play Master System games on a Mega Drive. And that was like, oh, that's brilliant. Put this in the top. And there's actually a Mega Drive 1 and 2 do have all the chips inside to play Master System 1 games in there. So exactly, from the get-go, they were thinking about backwards compatibility, which is really good. And Sega are always really quite good about that. What they did for the Mega Drive, those sort of the Game Gear, they had one as well for that, to play Master System games. But for me, that was a really cool sort of feature because, you could then use that to sort of play all the older games and stuff. And, some of the Master System games, some of the later ones, looked almost as good as Mega Drive games, in my opinion. But did you ever have one back in the day?
I didn't know. I didn't really have it. Well, I had my Game Gear, so most of the Master System games that were worth playing had a Game Gear version. I had the Master Gear converter.
That was it. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, the converter for the Game Gear that allowed that to play Master System games. But yeah, I think it's a cool accessory, the Master System converter for the Mega Drive. There's a lot of brilliant Master System games that didn't have a Mega Drive version, and it's also just to sort of go back to something I mentioned earlier. The reason why it's a good idea to keep your Mega Drive have that 50 hertz ability, because most of the Master System's library is PAL, because it had quite a long and successful life in Europe, and an even longer one in Brazil. But in Europe, there was a ton of games. Most of the library of the Master System came out in Europe and were developed in Europe. So the games are 50 hertz as standard. So if you try and play them on a Mega Drive that's modded for 60, they'll run too fast. So if you've got a Mega Drive that can flip between the two modes when you're playing Master System games, you're going to probably mostly use that in 50 hertz mode for those games that came out in Europe, which is most of them. They're going to be basically made to be ran at 50 hertz. So yeah, if you're going to be playing Master System games, and you should, because there's loads of brilliant Master System games, keep your Mega Drive. Make sure you've got an ability to play 50 hertz. But it's also great because if you have a Mega EverDrive, and that's kind of the final accessory we'll touch upon. Basically a flash card that allows you to play ROMs, Mega Drive ROMs on your actual Mega Drive, the same ROMs that you would normally play in an emulator on your PC. You can run those on your Mega Drive. But the great thing about the Mega EverDrive, there's several variants of the Mega EverDrive as well. There's like a base model all the way up to a Mega EverDrive Pro. The base Mega EverDrive also lets you play Master System ROMs as well. So it's kind of utilizing like what you were saying, Stu, about it's got all the Master System hardware inside it. You can play those Master System games via the Mega EverDrive on the Mega Drive without having to get the Master System converter, because you're obviously not using a different cartridge. You're just using the Mega EverDrive flash cart. So, I mean, you've got the Mega EverDrive that I used to have actually. What's your thoughts on flash carts for the Mega Drive?
I think they're really good, and there's conversations there about piracy and stuff like that. But the way I see it is everyone's made their money now on the games. There aren't really ways of buying the games new, but it's so convenient. And and I think in 2025 the biggest thing about them is people are still releasing games for the Mega Drive and the Master System, and you can download, you can buy the the ROM. You can buy the ROM and then actually put it onto your EverDrive, and actually so you're playing brand new games that are coming out for these systems, and you're good to go. You have there's loads more stuff coming out for it. I think probably, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 games a year, maybe, if that. But
yeah, probably.
Yeah, it's interesting to see sort of what people are doing with it. So, and I think they have cheats built in as well. Exactly. So there's a bit of that going on, and it's just in reality for the Mega Drive. There are a few games. The one that always comes to mind is I want to say Musha. Streets of Rage 3. That cost a lot of money. I don't know how much they cost today, but certainly when I was when I had the shop years ago, they were
the Punisher, Mega Man Wily Wars, Alien Soldier. These are hundreds of pounds, these games. Original.
Exactly. So sometimes there are these huge barriers to entry for actually going back to playing these games. So if you can get yourself an EverDrive, and how much are they now? Maybe £100 or something, or
there's different levels, like as we sort of touched upon, isn't there? Then there's ones that are like £30 or £40. I've got a Mega EverDrive Pro, which is a couple of £100, so it's not cheap. But that actually allows you to play Mega CD games through the cartridge as well. And it's got a few other things like save states and things like that, so you can actually save your game and jump in right at the point that you left it, like you would in an emulator. A lot of those things aren't included in the cheaper flash carts. But I mean, you're spot on, Stu. You've got all these games that you can play every single game that ever came out that realistically you might not be able to buy if you wanted to be super honest about it, because they're so expensive. And there's also hacks. There's a great example is Mortal Kombat Arcade Edition. Yeah, which is an incredible, basically a hack of the original Mortal Kombat on the Mega Drive, which is pretty decent, but it was missing a lot of stuff.
But didn't people, I was going to say, make a Sonic 2 and 3 together, or Sonic 3 and Knuckles all in one? And
there's tons of Sonic hacks, and tons of games that have all kinds of hacks to improve them or to make them more wacky or zany or whatever. But like I say, Mortal Kombat Arcade Edition is a really good one to check out. People have done videos on it on YouTube. Restores a lot of the stuff from the arcade that wasn't in the Mega Drive version. Improves the graphics and things like that. Makes it sort of the definitive 16-bit version of Mortal Kombat. So definitely worth checking out. And the only way you can really play that is through a flash cart. So yeah, they're really cool accessories. Can either be super cheap or very expensive, depending on what your needs are. But definitely, probably the best accessory you can get for a Mega Drive might be a flash card these days. So yeah, I mean, the other sort of stand or grade of accessories are basically the add-ons, the things that are designed to enhance the capabilities of the Mega Drive, both graphically and storage capability wise. And there's basically two. Most people would know about them and knows anything about the history of Sega, but there's the Mega CD and there's the 32X. I mean, we've done sort of dedicated episodes. I'm not sure we've done a 32X one. I'm not sure we have, actually. We've definitely done a Mega Drive one. But yeah, these are two devices that basically plugged into the Mega Drive. The Mega CD was the first one. It came out in 1991. Came out over here a bit later in 93. Yeah, things literally took years to get to us in those days. Basically allows it to play games from CD-ROMs, which is all the rage, of course, at that point in the 90s. It was very expensive when it came out. I didn't know anybody that had one, but I think pretty cool. And you got a decent library of games, the Mega CD. It kind of expanded the Mega Drive's library of, already had all those cartridge games. But you're looking at another couple of hundred games on top of that, and many of which are very good. And then the other one is the 32X, which basically enhanced the graphical power of the Mega Drive and turned it into a kind of a low-grade 32-bit console, not quite up to the level of anything like a PlayStation 1 or a Sega Saturn. But it meant it could do a passable version of, Virtua Fighter and Doom and Virtua Racing Deluxe and things like that. Again, it was fairly expensive when it came out. Wasn't supported. I think 94 was when it came out, and basically Sega dropped it. Basically a year later, and it only had about 50 or 60 games. But actually, most of the games on it are pretty good. The main argument is a lot of those games already had a Mega Drive version, and you might not really get much benefit. There's a few more colors and a few more sound effects in the 32X version. It's really the games that you couldn't do on the Mega Drive where you see the benefit, like Doom, Star Wars Arcade, Virtua Fighter. Those are the sort of games that you kind of would buy a 32X for. What are your thoughts on like the Mega CD and the 32X?
Yeah, I mean, it was good that they tried them, and we discussed before, and I thought the Mega CD was sort of a success, and it did offer some more sort of graphical modes and power over the Mega Drive. It wasn't just a CD add-on. There was it's sort of like a Mode 7 type graphics thing that came out, which was really interesting. But I think what they did, I actually think they went down the right route with the 32X and games, but they went down the wrong route with the Mega CD, because they tried to do all these, full motion video games, and that was the videos, things like Night Trap and Time Girl, or there were so many of them, and they weren't really, they weren't for me. And I think in general, people don't really think of them too fondly. Maybe a little bit of sort of, they like a little bit of bad camp acting, but they certainly had, on, say, for example, the two games that always stand out on Mega CD was Final Fight. It was two-player, and then Sonic CD, which, had some really sort of cool modes and stuff in there. I'm thinking about sort of when you go up it sort of changes. I don't know, can't quite describe it, but that was always good. But then the 32X was like, well, they tried like one accessory for the Mega Drive. Let's try another one, and it was a little bit. I think people were they worked out that actually they don't want to spend £200 or £150 on something when the next machine is going to be coming out in another sort of 6 months, a year, or however long it was, and it would have sort of better graphics. So I think people appreciated that it was just a stopgap, and then for that reason, it only really had 30 games that came out for it, or maybe a few more. But things like Star Wars looked amazing on there. Virtual fighting, virtual racing, Doom. What's it? Oh, Knuckles, Chaotix. That was really good. So there were some good games on there, and if you like your 3D or your 2D Mega Drive games, it was quite interesting, because the Mega Drive was sort of doing maybe the backgrounds or all the text around it, and the overlays, and then the 32X was doing a bit more 3D. So they really looked like sort of Mega Drive games on steroids. So if you like that look, yeah, they did look good. But then, of course, everyone knew the PlayStation, the 3DO, the Sega Saturn was all going to be coming out around the corner. So I think it was a little bit too little, too late.
Agreed, yeah. And as much as you do get access to these games, that the 32X, again, you're not really getting a huge amount, because a lot of those games have Mega Drive versions. So you are getting more games, but whether or not they're worth it or not is up to you. The Mega CD, between the two of them, I would say the Mega CD is probably worthwhile. There's plenty of games on there, like Stu touched upon: Snatcher, Sonic CD, Final Fight, and loads more besides. We've got a whole episode on the Mega CD where we deep dive more into it. The only thing that kind of makes both of these accessories a little bit difficult to justify is the price. A Mega CD these days could run you a couple of £100, and the same for a 32X. That 32X might be a tiny bit more than that, pushing £300. So if you had both of them, you're looking at £500 potentially, just to open yourself up to potentially only a handful of games you may actually be interested in playing. If you're going to get if you think you'd want to take the plunge on one of them, I think I'd pick the Mega CD all day long. As much as we can take the mick out of your Night Traps and your FMV games, though Night Trap is actually quite fun, it's still worthwhile, I think. It does fall down a little bit, though, when really now you can just get a Mega EverDrive Pro flash cart that basically plays Mega CD games. It's got an optical drive emulator inside it. So you don't really need to get these separate Mega Drive hardware now. And you could maybe also justify going and getting a Sega Multi-Mega, hardware we talked about earlier, that's a Mega CD and a Mega Drive in one. You'll probably be paying more than you would to buy the two separate systems. But if you're going to be going hardcore into Mega CD, it might put that on your radar. But yeah, I'd recommend the Mega CD, but you might be better off exploring its library by just getting a flash card. They aren't cheap. Again, they could run you a couple of £100 for the one that the Mega EverDrive Pro that has the Mega CD functionality. There's also the Mega SD. There's another flash card that's the same thing. But that's still going to be cheaper than buying a Mega CD. And, of course, Mega CD's got moving parts. It's got a laser. That stuff might wear out, might
go
not be
wrong.
working.
Yeah.
Go wrong, yeah. So you won't have that problem with a flash card playing the ISOs of the Mega CD games from an SD card. So that's probably the better way to do it if you're going to be spending a couple of £100 wanting to play the Mega CD games. Get a flash card. But, there was also a couple of different versions of the Mega CD. There was the Mega CD 1, which looks like kind of a VCR or a hi-fi stack kind of CD player. And there was the Mega CD 2. They're both kind of stylized to fit the Mega Drive console that's the same number. Well, I kind of butchered describing that, but the Mega CD 1 kind of goes with the Mega Drive 1. The Mega Drive 2 goes with the Mega CD 2 really perfectly. But you can interchange either one with the other. They just don't kind of look quite as elegant. You probably want to get a Mega CD 2 if you're going to buy one, because if only because the Mega CD 1 uses a tray drawer that comes out. You put the CD in and then close it. The reason why that might be a bad thing is because those can fail. Whereas the Mega CD 2 is basically a top-loading CD system. So you just hit a button, the flap opens up, you drop your disc in. I think overall the PC Engine CD did 16-bit CD-ROM games better than the Mega Drive did. We never got that in the UK, but it just took the games that you could kind of already do on the regular sort of cartridge-based or the Hue cards system in the case of the PC Engine, and added, CD audio, and the games were bigger and longer. Didn't necessarily have better graphics, but ultimately there was games. Most of the library of the PC Engine is on the CD because it was so successful. That was probably never going to be quite that successful in Europe and US because of the price of the thing. But yeah, I'd recommend the Mega CD. 32X, difficult to justify. It was difficult to justify at the time it came out.
100%, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe if you got it when they were selling them for like £50 at the very end of the 90s, but now you're not going to be paying that. You're going to be paying hundreds of pounds for really, games that you're not going to desperately miss, and you might be better off just playing in an emulator. So that's basically all the accessories, whether it's controllers or flash carts or additional hardware you can bolt on. I mean, we can deep dive into things like HDMI cables to get them working on your modern TV. We've got episodes that talk about that in a bit more in depth. We've already kind of hit the hour. I think the last thing we can touch upon as finishing is basically the games. We won't talk about the specific games that we think you should all buy. Again, we've got dedicated episodes for that. There's a million places on the internet you can look up top 50 Mega Drive games. It is a buyer's guide, so what we want to help you to do is, how would you buy the games? I mean, Stu, obviously, what would you say were the best way to do that?
I think places, like Play Nation Games, obviously I've got to say that, in Croydon. Places like CEX, eBay, and what someone was saying, I was watching a collector, and Etsy. They'll buy games on Etsy, and I didn't know that was a thing. So
you can get everything on there now, I think. Yeah,
you can buy games on Etsy, and then also I actually want to say there's lots of really good sort of collections on things like the PS3, the Xbox 360, the PS4, the PlayStation 2 that have lots of the Mega Drive games on. So if you actually going to go, actually, I don't want to go down the hardware route. I just want to play the games. There are lots of different routes that way. What you can sort of play them on. So I would say that's another option. But yeah, eBay, you can sort of find them, and old-fashioned boot fairs or car boots. I
think buying bundles is always a good shout as well, isn't it? Because you could end up paying a lot less. Yeah.
Exactly, and you can not chuck out, but resell the ones you don't want to keep the ones you do want, and I think Mega Drive collecting is still pretty affordable, except for the games you mentioned earlier, Trev. But I would sort of go down that route, and if you don't want to go down the hardware route, there's plenty of ways you can play the games, and then even going on to things like RetroArch and the whole world of emulation, where you got all the sort of modern day comforts like quick saving and rewinding and things like that. So don't necessarily think you have to go out and buy the hardware, get a CRT TV, do this. I'd always say that's the best way to play the games, but there are lots of other maybe more cost-effective ways of doing it. Switch Online game.
That's right.
Advanced membership or whatever it's called. You can play them on there as well.
The expansion, the
expansion pass,
expansion pass. I totally agree with all of that, Stu. I mean, a good way to decide which, if you want to collect physical games, you probably want to get the games that would interest you. So probably hit up all of these different ways of playing those games on modern systems now, whether that's official ways like the Switch expansion pass or the various Mega Drive collections that have come out for all the consoles over the years. Obviously, they're sailing the high seas, wink, wink, as well. If you want to run an emulator on your PC and have a big load of ROMs, and that might make you decide, I want to get a physical copy of Sonic 1 or Sonic 2. Obviously, those games will be very cheap, even boxed complete, 10, 20 quid at most. There's very few games on the Mega Drive, unlike the Nintendo consoles, the early Nintendo consoles that run into hundreds of pounds. It's really things like The Punisher, Pirates of Dark Water, The Death and Return of Superman, Mega Man Wily Wars, Alien Soldier, Musha, that Stu mentioned earlier. Games that had very low print runs, basically. There's not really, but that's most of the real crazy expensive. There's a few more beneath that tier, like Sunset Riders and Castlevania and things like that kind of could run you about £70 to £100 complete. Ninja Turtles, Hyperstone Heist. Konami seems to be, in a lot of these. So that's where you're going to end up spending the money. But yeah, realistically, you're probably not going to be bothering with those. It's going to be the common games. And a lot of the best Mega Drive games are cheap. Street Fighter 2, Champion Edition, Sonic the Hedgehog, all those games. You'll be able to pick up Mortal Kombat for under £30, even less if you just go for the cartridge, I would say.
I was going to say that. Don't worry about it. Go for cart only. Play the games. Just buy the cart if you want to play the games. You don't have to have the box. You don't have to have the instructions. If you need the instructions, I'm sure you can download them online to work out what the controls are. And there may be a few games that actually need it. But yeah, 100%. Don't worry about just getting the cartridges. Go for it and have fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, I've personally I haven't counted them, but I think I've got about 150 Mega Drive games. I think nearly all of them complete in the box. And to be honest, most of them, I don't think I paid more than £20, £30. A lot of the time it was bundles that I got a lot of those in. It's pretty easy to get. In this country, the Mega Drive was huge. So you won't have too much trouble finding shops that still sell them. CEX is a good place, nationwide. Obviously, we would love it if you to check out more in independent stores like PlayNation in Croydon. They've got tons of Mega Drive games. Most towns and cities you'll go to tend to have an indie retro game shop where you'll probably get a much better experience of buying a Mega Drive game than probably CEX. You won't have to smell sweaty vinegar for the amount of time you're in there, I guess, is one bonus. But yeah, pretty easy to get. Probably the easiest out of all the 8 and 16-bit generation. I'm kind of lumping together into one era. But I would say the Mega Drive is probably the easiest to get because the NES wasn't huge over here and the games come in cardboard boxes that are going to be buggered by now. So you're probably going cart only whether you want to or not. A lot of the time with that. Kind of the same story with the Super Nintendo, although that was more popular than the NES was. You're really looking at the Game Boy when it comes to Nintendo for kind of relatively cheap collecting. Although even then, you could be things like Castlevania could run you hundreds of pounds for a complete in box. But the Mega Drive is a really fun console to collect to. And yeah, like I said, best thing to do is check out all the various resources on the internet to see what the best games are, play them in your emulators and figure out which ones you want to try and get physically. Cart only is super cheap, and there's tons of places in the UK where you can start your collection and then build it up. But yeah, that's pretty much, crammed in as much as we can into that hour and 13, 14 minutes. Stu, where can you find us on the internet?
Oh, we're everywhere. So you can find us on consoleshock.net. It's our website. You can find us on Facebook, search Console Shock. You can find us on YouTube, search Console Shock, and any podcast client and Twitter. So you can find us on any of those and check out our any sort of back episodes and things like that.
Cool. We hope you enjoyed this show. Maybe you're going to start your own Mega Drive collection. Let us know how you get on in the comment sections of all the various places where you can get Console Shock. And hopefully we'll catch you in the next one. Take care.
Take it easy, guys. Bye-bye.